Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Kyle, and I'm here with David, my co-host. Say hello, David.
Hey everybody.
Hey, and we're going to be looking at a new film out at the moment called Cat Person, kind of a social look at dating in the modern age. It follows Margot, played by Emilia Jones, who is a 20-year-old college sophomore working nights at a niche movie theater, and she has very little luck in love. She spends most of her days lending an ear to her roommate Taylor, played by Geraldine Viswanathan, who is a narrator and feminist activist extraordinaire, or listening to her peculiar teacher, Dr. Enid Zabala, played by Isabella Rossellini, the great Isabella Rossellini. And she glorifies the matriarchal society of her ant colony. Now, one day Margot meets an older, tall, awkward, but kind of cute cinema goer named Robert, played by Nicholas Braun, and feels instantly drawn to him. Eventually, the two begin a fling, but they only meet sparingly while her imagination getting away with her. She begins to picture Robert as this idealistic heartthrob one moment, but also a potential serial killer the next. And I mean, like, what else? What does she really know about this guy is the question. Now, when they finally meet in real life, Margot tries to make things work, seeing the effort Robert is making, but after several clashes in personalities, a bad first kiss, and horrible sex, she's sure this relationship is not for her. But when Margot, with Taylor's quote unquote help, ghosts Robert, she quickly begins to fear for her life. And will she be the latest woman to be killed by a violent, spurned lover, or is this all in her head? Again, what does she really know about this guy? Now, this movie actually begins with a quote from Canadian poet and activist Margaret Atwood. It goes, men are afraid that women will laugh at them, and women are afraid that men will kill them. And it's a fairly succinct quote that kind of sets the scene and sets the tone for Cat Person, which is directed by Susanna Fogel and written by Michelle Ashford, based on a New Yorker magazine short story which went viral a few years ago. The film, as I said, it looks at the horrors of dating in a modern, disconnected age. Now, this is kind of a odd little movie, David. Yeah, I wasn't quite sure what to think of it, like it being based on a short story that had gone so viral. I'm just curious, like, had you read the short story that this is based on?
I hadn't read the short story itself. I'd heard about what happened with the short story. For people
Mm,
out there that don't know, the short story was originally written for the New Yorker, the magazine, and there was speculation when it was published that people weren't sure whether it was fiction or real life, and the author of it was kind of what's the right word? They kind of was reluctant to come out and say whether it was true or whether it was fiction as well, which meant that there
yeah.
was a lot of speculation out there about whether or not it was true. But then going on what we've read, a guy actually come forward and said that he believed it was written about him and it was unethical for the story um, to have been used allegedly. That's like allegedly what's happened. I'll protect myself by saying allegedly there. And he also said that he felt that the writer of the story, and there was also a speculation that she wasn't the person that it happened to. So there's a
Mm,
lot of stuff in there, but basically his return of reply was that the person that it was written about or may have been written by was showing stalker kind of tendencies towards him.
yeah.
So like there
Yeah.
was, yeah. So
Yeah.
if for anyone who heard the interview that we did a couple of weeks ago with the director of this film, there was a bit that twist came during the production of the film. So they had basically started making the film, and as they said, as Susanna said in the interview, they weren't 100% sure whether it was true or not true. So they were kind of taking that line of this is just what the article says. But then all this other stuff came out. So, yeah. And it's also interesting to note that a lot of social media people were really angry about the person writing the article as well, because it's basically alleging that this guy is a liar and like not a very nice guy. But a lot of people are saying that's just from one person's point of view, and there deserves to be a right of reply.
Yeah, I'd even heard that the at least parts of the story were based on some other woman's experience, and the
Yeah,
experience that she had had was actually it was awkward, but um, she was still friendly with the guy. So
yeah,
yeah, for it to have such a dark undertone, because the problem is I never got a chance to read the full story, but I can see that from reading the basically the synopsis of the short story, I can see that the film follows that short story somewhat closely, and I think that a lot of the problems that come from the movie, and this is something that a lot of other people that have seen the movie and really like the short story, that when the film tries to um, create its own thing, I think that kind of gets away from what made the short story resonate with so many people. Especially in its finale, where it really kind of turns into a completely like off the wall kind of almost a slasher movie in some ways.
yeah.
Not really giving anything away because it's not like it doesn't literally turn into a slasher movie, but the vibe that it has going for it is a lot more action packed than the humdrum nature of the short story. I think that's what made this short story resonate with so many women was that a lot of women read this article, regardless of how fake or whatever it was, and they felt that, hey, this is something that I've been through, and they couldn't really get that from the movie.
Yeah, I thought it would have been interesting if they'd actually told this movie so that it showed the different points of view. I mean,
Mm.
like I've just pulled up a thing now, and the girl who claims that her story was kind of stolen for the article says the entire weight of Cat Person, what made it resonate was exactly the part that she says bears no resemblance to the truth at all. Like,
Mm.
so it would have been really interesting if and I know it was probably too far down the track for them to have done that with the film when it all broke out, but it would have been interesting if they'd told this story from the point of view of um, the journalist slash author writing her story, whether it was fiction or not. Then the real life girl that claimed that it was about her, and
Mm.
then the guy's point of view. It would have been really interesting to have shot the movie from three different points of view, I thought.
Yeah, kind of like that Matt Damon, Ben Affleck, Ridley Scott movie that came out a while ago. The name of it's escaping me at the moment with Adam Driver in it.
Oh yeah, yeah. I know the
Yeah,
one
that's
you mean,
like
but I can't think.
yeah,
Yeah,
I can't remember.
because
But yeah, that yeah,
let's be honest with this movie. If all this stuff had come out about this article before they started filming this film, they wouldn't have made the film.
probably not.
Um,
No.
yeah, because it was an absolute legal nightmare, from what I understand. Because like they would have paid the writer for the rights to do the film, but then all of a
Yeah.
sudden you've got somebody else come or two people claiming that they're the people that it's based on.
Mm.
So they were opening themselves right up for a lawsuit. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's interesting from that point of view because yeah, I don't know, like this film, it almost feels like a film that shouldn't have been made in the end, just because there is so much doubt over what actually happened. Like I really do feel for the screenwriter and the director of this film, because it would be like making a movie and saying it's a biography and then finding out every bit of information that you've been fed is untrue.
Yeah.
Suddenly the whole validity of your movie is kind of done. And I guess like in a way that was a big problem for Susanna Fogel, because of course her debut film that she did, Booksmart, was actually a pretty smart and funny film. And now all of a sudden she finds herself at the helm of a movie that has sparked massive debate online before it's even been released.
Yeah, there was some stuff in the ending of it that I actually it was kind of giving an alternate perspective on the scenarios of what was happening. And I thought that was interesting. And it seems like that actually wasn't something that was in the original short story. That was something that they may have, as you
Yeah.
said, just added into the film. Uh, Pretty much they had already committed to it. So yeah, there is some attempt to kind of change things up a little bit. I think the problem with the film for me is that it is such a I hate to say it because it really does sound bad me saying this just flat out. It's such a nothing story that and it's really just a movie about a woman going on meeting a guy and kind of going on a bad date with him. But it's so slow to get there. Like we're well over an hour into the film before they even go on their first date.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of drama to it. There's not a lot of uh and it feels like there's a lot of padding going on in this to try to extend it to a 2 hour runtime. And I think it would have suited the film a lot better to be 90 minutes,
Yeah.
especially for just the kind of basic story that they had going for them.
Yeah, because it almost has that feeling of like a Netflix series where like
Mm,
it's like leading up, and this almost feels like the pilot episode. But the thing that, and I don't know whether is, I've been tossing up like whether I like this about the film, whether I don't like the film about with this part, but you don't know who to side with because it kind of shows the dangers of online dating from both sides in an essence.
mm,
Like you've got a girl who um like, and I know that online dating bit kind of goes out the window with this more because they meet in person so early on. But on one side, you've got a girl who feels like she's been lied to, that this person's not the cat person that he's made out that he is. But on the flip side, you could also say this is a movie about a guy who's going about his everyday way of life, asks a girl out on a date, and suddenly she goes complete almost bunny boiler on him, not believing anything that he says. Like,
yeah.
you can take this movie both ways. And because that does kind of have that openness towards the end, you're still not 100% sure who is the liar and who is the victim in this story. And I almost wondered whether or not they kind of put that like that because that's how the article has ended up, with you not
Mm,
knowing like who's telling
the
the truth
truth
in the
behind it.
article as well. So
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. Like,
That
part of me, when I first walked out of this film, I thought I actually kind of liked that. But then the more I've thought about it, I'm being like, it's kind of frustrating because, but then, yeah, and it's really interesting because a couple of people that I've read who have actually said they sided with the guy, with female,
mm,
who said
hmm,
that this film really shows the dangers that a guy can put themselves in. Like,
yeah.
you go on a date with someone that you barely know, that you've met online, and they might start to doubt you and then dig up legal trouble and stuff for you for something that you
Yeah.
haven't even done. um
And
yeah.
that's kind of the problem because like I think I because I mean we're two guys watching this movie, which in some ways is made for women, I guess. Well, I believe that the story was, at least the short story was written really from a woman's perspective on dating, and it's like all the stuff that's going through her head, all the fears that are going through her head. She's trying to do this because she doesn't want to make him mad. She's trying to do this, and then in the end, it doesn't matter. You know, like basically the guy's kind of a prick anyway. Um,
Yeah.
and I think that the ambiguity to it, personally, I think the ambiguity to it to the film does actually kind of hurt it a little
Yeah.
bit, but they really they're laying on some stuff really thick like early on, especially with her friends. Uh friend Taylor, the Reddit moderator, feminist friend,
Yeah.
and her teacher. Like it really felt like every bit of dialogue, everything that anybody was saying was just about, I don't know, it was like viewing. the like gender roles through this really kind of one-sided perspective, and kind of like I hate to even say it, but kind of like a misandrist kind of like man-hating kind of way.
That
Um,
yeah, that's what I think I was trying to get at before. Like,
yeah.
even though like I can watch this movie and say, yeah, Robert's a bit of a prick. Like the way he
Mm,
treats her, he is a prick. But at the same time, the film is written from Margot's point of view. So you kind of got to ask yourself, was he a prick?
yeah.
Or was he kind of shy and awkward and she took it as being a prick because her her best friend has kind of highlighted all of those things,
Mm,
like, and made her look for those things. Someone someone else actually said this about this film, and I think it's true. It would be like if she was walking through a door and the door slammed behind her. Now she doesn't know whether Robert has slammed the door because he's being a prick and he's angry, or whether the door has
yeah.
just slipped out of his grip and slammed. But the way Margot would take that is that he's slammed the door, like in anger,
Yeah.
which may not be the case. So yeah, I think that's where this film becomes a little bit interesting, in that because it is from Margot's point of view, and because her friend is highlighting all of these things, you don't know whether or not Robert actually is the prick that he's made out to be
Yeah.
as well. So
I think some of the things they also added to the Robert character. I mean, again, to change things up, I think they even changed the name, I guess, to avoid any possible litigious actions or whatever. Um, but yeah, Robert actually comes off somewhat kind of like he's almost autistic in this. Did
yeah,
you get that?
that's
Yeah.
what I meant. He's kind of clumsy, he's kind of awkward. It's obvious that he doesn't know how to talk to women,
Yeah.
whether that's autism or whether that's just um, because he's a shy guy. Because later on, the sexual encounter that they have would kind of almost suggest that he may have been a virgin. Like,
Yeah.
you're not really sure. So yeah, it's that's where I think this movie. That's why I think it would actually have worked better if it had been written from at least the two point of views.
Hmm.
Like, because apparently the original article was supposed to be about the dangers for both sexes,
Yeah.
i.e., that a guy might be doing everything right, and the girl who's reading the messages or whatever might think that he's too perfect, so therefore a liar, um, and things like that. I just think if that was the case, and that's what the original article was supposed to be, maybe they should have showed it from this point of view, because of course the big part of this movie is and I don't think this is a spoiler, but it's what happens after she ghosts him.
Yeah.
um and people seem to that's what seems to be dividing people online. It's like, well, his reaction to it is completely out there. Like, this is the two
Hmm.
arguments. It's either completely out there and he's aggressive in the way that he responds to that, or it's, well, hang on a minute, this poor guy had no idea what happened. This girl that he thought everything was going nicely with suddenly just disappears.
Yeah.
So it would have been great, I think, to have actually seen that from both sides, and then that way this film would have really been um, showing the
Something
dangers
special.
of
Yeah.
modern dating and what can happen. So yeah,
Yeah. I guess, well, looking at that, I guess, what would you give it out of five, and what are your final thoughts on the film?
look, there's some scenes in this that I really love. I love dialogue driven movies. So there was some scenes like where they're talking about classic films and stuff like that that I liked. Um, I thought even though that could have been better, it could have been written almost in a Chasing Amy kind of way.
Hmm.
So look, I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5. I think it's okay, but I think it trips itself up. But I also do feel for the filmmaker, because I think a lot of that came out because of what came out in real life about the article that it was based on.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to give it 2.5 out of five, so I'm pretty close to you. Like you, I like the dialogue-driven films as well. I thought that the two leads in this were well cast and they performed well, but and so it was cringy and all that. I liked all those moments of it, but yeah, I guess it's kind of like a bad date in that it feels like it's a bit of a chore to get through.
Yep.
Yeah, I think had they had they done, as you say, had they kind of done the two different perspective things throughout the film, like almost like two separate short films, I think that would have made the story something really special. But I guess yeah, you can get out, give a Cat Person a look. I believe it's playing in limited release at the moment.
I wouldn't take someone to see this movie as a date. My first thought when I was watching this
No.
movie was, imagine if a couple go to watch this movie on a date and the girl's sitting there going, "Oh my goodness, this guy that I'm on this date with might be a serial killer." Like, and the guy is thinking, "Oh my goodness, is this what this woman's thinking of me? Like on this date?"
Yeah.
It's not a good date movie, I wouldn't say.
But then, according to this movie, neither is Empire Strikes Back either. So,
No.
it's, but yeah, I guess check it out if it seems interesting too. And yeah, we will be back right after this.